Welcome to Wildly Capable with Kate, a podcast made for those looking to unleash their wildest capabilities. I'm your host, Kate DeRocher, a dating, relationship, and self-worth coach on a mission to help people build better relationships, starting with the one they have with themselves. In each episode, we'll dig deep, turn inwards, and embark on a transformative journey. Together, we'll break free from unhealthy patterns, rip through self-limiting beliefs, heal past wounds, and build unwavering self-worth, all to create healthier relationships as a result. Get ready to explore the wild, untapped potential within you. Are you ready to see just how wildly capable you are? Subscribe now and join us on this empowering adventure. Remember, your wildest capabilities await. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Wildly Capable with Kate, the podcast made for those looking to unleash their wildest capabilities. I'm your host, Kate DeRocher, and I'm a dating, relationship, and self-worth coach who's on a mission to help you build better relationships, starting with the relationship that you have with yourself. I'm extra excited about today's episode because I am bringing on one of my dear friends here in Austin, Texas, Courtney Confare, to talk to you all about connection and the power of community. I thought Courtney would be the perfect person to bring on because she is a super connector and event curator here in Austin. She curates experiences that foster authentic and meaningful connections. And she has a passion for unique experiences. She has a deep curiosity about others and a commitment to making people feel seen. Courtney's a natural in the art of building community. So I thought, what better person to come on a podcast all about relationships than somebody like that? I'm so excited for you all to meet and hear from Courtney. She shares a ton of wisdom on how to build community and how to get out of your own way when it comes to building community. She gives actual practical tips to build friendships, to put yourself out there, to find events. And I think it is so important for anybody who wants a stronger network of friends or network of connections to listen to this episode. It really is so insightful and so fun. So if you are looking for community, if you're looking to build more friendships, this episode and Courtney's wisdom is for you. So let's get to it. Hi, Courtney. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Of course. Thank you for bringing me on.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been really excited about this. When I was thinking through who I want to have as a guest on the show, I just thought of you immediately. You're somebody who, since knowing you in Austin, since I moved here, you've been so just welcoming and open and constantly inviting me to things. And I think it's really beautiful. And I know that's kind of like your whole mission and what you do. So I thought it'd be great to bring you on since my podcast is all about relationships, which really means it's all about connection, which is your specialty.
Yeah.
To start, how about you just share with us like who you are and a little bit about what you do?
I like to think of myself as like a super connector and event curator. And I'm really all about elevating other people to bring out their fullest potential through the power of connection. Because I truly believe in the quote, you're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And that just has such a positive impact on your life and who you become.
That's really, really beautiful. And I think more people need to understand that and pay attention to it because we do so easily get swept up in being in the wrong groups or groups that aren't elevating us. So it's so valuable to pay attention to who you're surrounding yourself with. I love that. I also love the phrase super connector. That's amazing. What does it look like on a day-to-day? Like, how are you a super connector? What does that entail?
Yeah, I mean, I go on so many walk and talks and so many events. I was kind of just doing like an overview of on my whiteboard the other day, and this month I've been on to 18 events. And then I think probably 17 walk and talks. And maybe it's too much, but I just truly believe that the more connections you have, the more opportunities come from it.
You are the super connector. So in your opinion, why are connections so important?
There's just so much personal development in that, right? Like sometimes people act as our mirrors, and then so it brings out your own insecurities. And so now you get like feedback like, ooh, I need to work on this. And then also connections, they can be your biggest cheerleader and help kind of support and like boost your self esteem and just like bring your dreams to life. So definitely personal growth on a personal level. And then as far as professionally, just, yeah, back to so many opportunities.
Mm,
And I almost like don't want to share this, but maybe it could be inspiring. Where like
yes.
yeah, I swear I get like 3 opportunities of people wanting to like work with me every single day.
And that
And
doesn't shock me at all. That makes sense.
like I'm overwhelmed by all the opportunities I have. And I know that's such like an amazing place to be in. But that's just what happens when you continuously show up and consistently and put yourself out there and genuinely care about people, then just opportunities are gonna like flow.
That's so true. And I think, well, first thing is you saying like connections are a mirror is beyond spot on. It just, you can learn so much about yourself by turning inwards, but you learn so much more even when you're in community and in relationships.
Mhm.
Because you see all these behaviors that you didn't know you had suddenly come to light.
Yeah.
And that's such a great reason as to why to focus on community. It's for so many reasons, and one of them is to become a better version of you. I love that. Tell me, like, what got you into this? What's made you a super connector? Why is this something you're so passionate about?
Yeah. So, I was thinking about this last night and I think, when you're young, like we all have this like childlike play in us and we're so curious and we don't have all the limiting beliefs and the stories that other people put on us. And so you're just like out there living your best life. And so I think my curiosity combined with my positive, optimistic attitude, it kind of like shielded me from any self doubt. And I was probably so naive, just like talking to strangers at a young age. I don't think my parents liked it very much, but I'm like, I'm just doing me, like nothing bad will ever happen. And yeah, so because I was able to show up authentically and not have that like inner critic, then it just led to the most amazing conversations and those conversations and connections have shaped me for who I am today. So I just want everyone else to be able to have that same experience.
That's so sweet. I mean, it's true. You make other people feel, like you said, safe and comfortable and like they can actually share what they're feeling. And that's, like I was saying, what I noticed about you is your questions, they're never just basic superficial questions. They are actually like getting to the core of who somebody is and understanding them. What makes it possible for you to do that? Because I think it's really challenging for people to feel confident in asking those sorts of questions. And then what tips would you give to somebody who wants to enhance their relationships through more meaningful conversations, but feels like scared to do it?
I feel like people, they want to be seen, right? They want to feel seen, they want to feel heard. And so I kind of approach conversations in a non-judgmental way. And then when you approach conversations like that, then the other person feels safe. And then if I lead by example and start by being vulnerable myself, then it like gives them to be vulnerable.
How can somebody who struggles with that, like who struggles to go deeper or to have tougher conversations or more meaningful conversations, either out of fear or insecurity or rejection, how can somebody lean into it more? How can they be more like you?
I would say, well, first, I always have like 3 go-to questions.
Love that.
And it's usually like, I try to keep it positive. So instead of asking, like, hey, how are you? Good. How are you? Right? You can ask them, hey, what was a highlight of your week? Or
Mm,
what is something that you're looking forward to? Or what's a passion project that you're working on? Even something where, so many people, the first question that I always get asked is, where are you from? Right. And it's even just minor little tweaks. You can be like, hey, like when you say like, hey, where are you from? And let's say like I'm from Florida, they're like, ooh, like what do you miss most about home?
great
Right. And
question.
so adding that second layer, because then it just makes conversation so much easier because now you have more to build off of.
Mm,
It's an open-ended question rather than like a quick yes, no answer or one-worded answer.
that's such a great like piece of input. It's just simply ask like the second question, not just the first thing, ask something that ties to it.
Mhm.
I love that.
Yeah.
Um, you throw a lot of events in Austin. You are constantly doing things. You throw dating events. You are literally everywhere. Everybody I know knows Courtney. How do you curate events that help people feel safe and help bring about connection and vulnerability through like the way that you do on your one-on-ones? How do you do it in
Yeah.
your event?
I would say that it always starts by making the other person feel welcome as soon as they walk in the door, and kind of trying to make the environment as frictionless as possible. Because oftentimes, so many people have so much anxiety and fear just like getting out of bed and like going to the event. They're like, oh my gosh, what am I going to say? Who am I going to talk to? What if I don't know anyone? What
Yeah.
questions will I ask? And so I try to make it seamless for them by, yeah, first by curating the guest list. So like you already know going into it that you were handpicked, and then it makes you feel like special.
Mm.
And then you're comfortable talking to other people because you know that they're also good people that were handpicked. And then by giving you icebreakers and prompts to ask people, that way you don't have to worry about what to talk about.
Do you find that people like the icebreakers, or do they get intimidated?
Mm, a little mix of both. I think sometimes it can make people slightly uncomfortable, but maybe that's the beauty in it, right? Where it's like you should seek out situations that make you uncomfortable because you're kind of, right? It's like so many people are afraid to feel and to be seen. And so when you do a big icebreaker, you're like exposing yourself.
That's so well said. What makes a person afraid to be seen? Like, why does that even form in us? Because I know I've experienced it too. And then how do we actually start to shed it?
Yeah, great question. I feel like a lot of it is social media, right? Because people put their most like glamorized best self on social media, and then comparison is a thief of joy, right? So oftentimes, and we constantly are comparing ourselves with other people, and then it brings out our own insecurities, and then so then we're not able to show up because we're constantly like judging ourselves.
So it's not even judgment from other people; it's judgment from ourselves about what other people could maybe think or say about us, which they're
Yeah,
most likely not.
yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I know in my own life, there have been so many times where I didn't go to the event, or I didn't go up to the girl to try to make a friend because I was so scared she would think I'm weird, or I wouldn't fit in, or they wouldn't like me, or there'd be somebody there who I wasn't comfortable with, whatever. And I feel like you're really breaking down those barriers and telling people, yeah, you may have some insecurities or some fears, but it's okay. That's kind of the whole point, is to
Mhm.
work through them.
Yeah, and that's but vulnerability is one of the best ways that you can relate to someone else too, because it makes us all human. It's like, oh my goodness, like you're going through that too. Like, let's bond over this, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I used to think like I have to be so strong and like that's what's going to make people like me and I can't show my weakness. And then I realized I have nothing to talk to anybody about. Like everybody's struggling just like me. So why not share my heart? It's something
Mhm.
that I can tell you're so good at and you like create the space for people to get good at it too. But as you know, and I'm sure as you've seen, community and connection is something that I feel like has really kind of dwindled over the past few years, especially since COVID. And I think it's
Mhm.
always been hard for people, but maybe we're just feeling it more and more now because of social media and things like that. Do you think that we are in a connection deficit right now? And if yes, what can we do about it?
Yeah, I would. So yes, I believe we are, but I already see this huge transition, right? Of people now being more vulnerable and being more authentic and like sharing the ugly parts of their life. I don't want to say ugly, but like the less than good parts of their life. And also when you're right, so many people are constantly like, scrolling on social media and just yeah, then not getting out in the real life, and you're trying to like, all right, what hook can I get their attention with? And so now people are craving the opposite, where it's like, okay, now I'm craving depth instead of just like a 3-second little video. And people are craving your presence because social media, you have such a tiny little attention span now. And so that's what makes like in real life events different.
Absolutely. For somebody who is not like you, who's really shy and just like scared to even get offline and meet somebody in person, how do they change that? Like, how do they start to feel comfortable in their own skin to start to build community?
Okay, to start building a community or to show up at an event, or both?
I guess both, because, well, events would be one way you could build community, but I guess just build community in general, whether that's through events or dates
Yeah.
or just meeting up with friends for a walk.
Yeah. So I feel like, right, like all of us crave connection, but so many of us are so afraid to be the initiator. It's like, oh, well, I'm an introvert, so I can't be the initiator. It's like, well, is that really true? Or can you learn that skill and become the initiator?
The
So
number of times I've said, like, you're probably in your own way. It's
yeah.
not that these opportunities don't exist or other people aren't looking for community. It's that you are literally standing in your own way.
Mhm.
I think that all the time since moving from LA to Austin. It'd be easy for me to be like, well, they didn't invite me or, they didn't reach out. But did I? No, I also
Yeah.
wasn't reaching out. So it's also my responsibility.
Totally. I had to learn a hard lesson recently where this girl that I really liked, and so I really liked her, and I like just being so busy, I would invite her to probably like 15 events, and she would always show up, and I introduced her to so many amazing girls, and then I got time for her birthday, and I realized I wasn't invited, and I'm like, dang, right? But I didn't take it personally because I'm like, well, when was the last time I intentionally reached out and was like, hey, how are you doing? Let's go on a
Right.
walk. Let's go out for coffee. Like, let's jump on a phone call because, like, inviting someone to an event is one thing, but actually nourishing that relationship and going deeper is entirely different. So
It
then I kind of like took it on myself, like, okay, how could I have been a better friend?
That's incredible that you were able to like reflect in that way because it'd be so easy to just like have your ego be bruised and then be like, well, she doesn't like me, so I'm never going to try again. But you're so right. Being in a group and actually going deeper with somebody, two very different things. And
Mm-hmm.
I've realized through forming new friendships for the like one of the first times as an adult because in LA, it just was I went to college, I graduated, I kept hanging out with people in LA. Now I've moved and I have to form all new friendships. It's kind of like the meeting people is the simple part, but then the going deeper with people and actually putting consistent time and effort in, that's where it gets harder. What can somebody do to actually nourish those relationships?
Yeah. I mean, I do lots of walk and talks. So I'm just walking around the trail and getting to know them, get my steps in that way. Then if it's not the best conversation, I'm like, cool, I still got
At
sunshine.
least working out, that's great.
I would say that, and like always follow up. There's no greater feeling than meeting someone new. And then I need to work on getting more consistent with this. But basically, yeah, like when you go to an event and you meet someone and then sending them a personalized text message after or a voice audio on something that you talked about, like, hey, I really loved it when you shared this story or whatever it is, right? Or maybe they gave you some recipe. It's like, hey, I actually tried that, or they sent you a podcast. So, yeah, I think just like that little personal touch after every single first interaction will go a long way.
And I think it's that personal touch that actually shows like I was present. I was there for you. I'm not there for a business connection or whatever it is. Like I genuinely wanted to get to know you. And that's
Yeah.
something I've seen time and time again in the people I'm meeting in Austin. I don't feel like they're connecting with me just to, network with me or get something out of me. And sure, there's time and place for that, but I actually feel like they actually want to get to know me on a deeper level. And I
Mhm.
think voice memos is such a good way because then you can hear each other's tone instead of it being some generic text.
So on the building community, I was going to say one of the first steps I would do is right, become the initiator and pick the date, right? Like ideally, like maybe like a Wednesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. That way you're not like competing with the weekend dates, but pick the date and then kind of do analysis of who is the version of myself that I want to become, right? And so if you, yeah, because if you want to be healthier, right, and in shape, well then you should probably seek out other fitness events. So now that you have the date and you have the clarity of the people that you want to surround yourself with, now what you should do is look up every single event going on and see like what resonates that, and then make sure to go alone. And when you go alone, now you have this golden ticket that you can approach anyone and be like, hey, I'm hosting an event next week, right? Like, can I tell you more about it? So that's why like having the date before you go is a game changer because then you could just go up to anyone.
That's really, really smart. I also love that you say go alone because
Mm,
normally I think we would recommend like bring a friend, bring somebody so you feel more comfortable. Why go alone? What's the benefit of
I
that?
feel like oftentimes when people go alone, they'll end up, or sorry, when they don't go alone, they'll use that other person as a crutch. And then it's easy to kind of just like hide back into your shell and like go in a corner and just catch up with them. But then you're not getting uncomfortable, right? You're staying in your comfort. So going alone, it gives you, yeah, like an extra little push
Mm.
to go up and talk to someone else. And you're more approachable when you're alone. So then you're more likely to get invited to other things. Yeah.
It is true.
Or
Like the times where I bring a friend, I just stay with that friend. The
mhm.
times where I force myself to go to something alone, it's like you can either stand in this corner awkwardly and talk to nobody and look at your phone, or you can just put yourself out there and, compliment a girl, just say something, anything to like break the ice, which actually is a great
Yeah.
question for you. When you try to initiate something with somebody, like introducing yourself, getting to know them, would you recommend starting with a compliment? Or do you try to do something more sincere right off the bat?
Yeah. I would say I mean, especially with girls. And as long as it's sincere, but like, oh, I love your hair, or like, what a cute outfit, right? And so, especially with the girls, I think I always start with a compliment. As long as it's sincere, of course.
Yeah. As long as you
Um,
actually mean it, it's a good in.
yes. Yeah. And what else? And if it's a group, I usually just approach a group and I'm like, hey, can I join you guys?
Mm.
And oftentimes they're like, sure. But then sometimes they say sure, but then their body language will tell me something different.
Right, like slightly turning, and you're like, "Ugh."
Totally. But that's where self-love comes in, right?
Mhm.
Because it's like now I can do that. And I've been rejected in so many conversations that I just like get the feeling like, ooh, like I'm not wanted here, but I
Yeah.
don't take it personally. So I'm like, maybe they're in an intimate conversation and I'm not here to please every single person. And I know that not everyone's gonna like me. So then I'll just do the same thing and move on to another group. Like, hey, can I join you guys? My name is Courtney. And instead of like having them now change their conversation for me, I'll try to pick up where they are leaving
Mm.
off and then just like join them.
That's such a good point. I mean, I literally had a client a couple of weeks ago who shared with me that she's been trying to build community in her state, and she went to a bar or something like that, and she was trying to approach different groups to break into their conversation, and they like welcomed her in, but then based on their body language she could quickly tell, oh no, they really don't want me here, they're getting annoyed with this, and she got immediately discouraged. So how have you built the muscle of being like, you know what, that's okay, it's not about me. Who knows why they don't really want to include me? Maybe it's something in their conversation or with them. How have you not allowed rejection to keep you in that like stage of discouragement? Because it can for so many.
Mm. I think what is like getting the reps in and then sometimes kind of like catching yourself and like it's like the story that I am telling myself
Mm.
is right.
Wow.
So it's like, is this actually true? The story that I'm telling myself is that they don't like me. Like, do they really not? Do you know that?
Right.
Probably not.
Do they even know you? How could they just like you
Yeah.
if they don't know
Yes.
you? Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about the times where it is actual rejection? Then what do
Mm.
you do?
Um,
Like
if
where
it is actual
they
rejection,
don't like you or they've made
I
it
think, yeah.
clear.
I think thank you. I'm like, thank goodness I didn't invest more time in you. And now you naturally weeded yourself out of my life. Like
Wow.
now I can invest that time in someone else.
I just love your perspectives. Like it really is so refreshing because it is so easy to, feel let down and then lose hope and not want to try again. But you just say, okay, that's no problem. Like you're not for me. There's somebody else that is for me. I know that there are other amazing women or friendships that I'm going to build. I just
Yeah.
think it's really, so just like commending you, I think it's really beautiful because it is so hard. Do you feel like you've had to do a lot of work on your self-worth to get here, or is this something that comes naturally for you?
Yeah. Interesting question. I kind of wish I had like this huge story of where I had to overcome all this like trauma and everything.
I love that
And
for you.
yeah, I know because I was really thinking, I was like, I don't think I have much of an inner critic. Like sometimes I'll catch myself saying, like, oh, you're the worst because I didn't respond to a message because I get overwhelmed.
Sure.
I will, if I catch myself saying that out loud, I will say, you're the best. And then even the people around me will like, did you just say you're the best? Like out of nowhere.
Like, yes, I did. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm like, oh yeah, because internally I caught myself saying you're the worst. So I had to neutralize it.
That's really
Yeah,
cool. So
but back. Oh,
it's just you. This is just you.
yeah. Well, I think it's like, so being young and naive and curious and looking through life in the lens of like optimism, then I would just constantly approach strangers. And I remember back when Uber Face came out, or when Uber came out, I would sit in the front seat and like hear this little 18, 20-year old. And yeah, and I would just talk to them. And every single time, I just loved watching their jaw drop, and they're like, wow, like you are so interesting and different. And they wouldn't ever expect that I could have these like deep, meaningful conversations at such a
Mm.
young age. But then, right, then you would hear, wow, I feel so seen. And then, so then that kind of, then I saw my own worth.
Mm.
And that I think really cultivated the self love. Um,
Well, and it feels like also you have so much self-love, but then you see what it can give to other people. So even in the hard moments where there is some rejection or a letdown or the friendship doesn't shape up to be what you thought it was going to be, you keep going because you know that, like you said at the start of this, if you lead by example, other people will be able to too.
totally.
I think
Yeah.
that's
And
really,
then like,
really
and
powerful.
just having faith that everything's gonna work out, right? And people are in your reason for like in your life for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. And I was gonna say back to, let's say, like relationships. And remember back when I was on the dating apps,
Mhm.
and sometimes like I would get frustrated, be like, why can't I find like any good match? I'm like, oh, because I'm not meant to date now. Like the
Wow.
universe is just weeding everyone out intentionally.
Yeah, what a beautiful trust in like the timing of your own life and actually being able to be present in the season you're in because you know the next season is going to come eventually. I wanted to ask you too. We talked a little bit about girls specifically. I have found in my own life that forming like healthy, lasting relationships with women can be more challenging than with men sometimes. Have
Mhm.
you experienced that? And what would you say to somebody who's maybe going through that?
Ooh, I've totally experienced that. And that's actually how I got started with events, because I didn't have girlfriends, and I used to think girls were all toxic and drama, and like I didn't want that like negativity in my life. But I feel like it's kind of just like dating, right? Like you gotta like weed out the bad apples and meet different people. And yeah. And then also I think it's good to be upfront and kind of like confrontational, even with your friends.
I love that.
Like if something is bothering you, or your feelings were hurt, just like being vulnerable and like, hey, like when I didn't get invited to this, I felt left out, or
Yeah.
whatever it is. And then, because then that, once again, it's either going to, I feel like by you being vulnerable, then they're either going to have to step aside or step up, right? It's
Mm,
like, hey, we're meant to be friends, or like, oh, damn, you're right. Like, I wasn't the best of friend.
wow. Yeah, I mean, you really see in those conversations, is this somebody who's meant to keep being a part of my life? Or is this somebody that like that season is over and that's okay and it was great while it lasted, but I think it's in those tougher, more like conflict type conversations that you actually A learn to like love each other better
Mhm.
or B realize, okay, that this is expired and that's okay.
And sometimes, like, that's the best thing that you can do, like, move on, because, like, like I said before, right, it could inspire them to become their best version.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think in our society, like the idea of conflict is so scary and it's getting talked about more and more. Like, there's relationship coaches, there's books, there's people like the Gottmans who talk about it all the time. But before, conflict was seen as like, that's bad, that's really bad. But in reality, conflict can be some of the most beautiful things that can happen to a relationship if both people are willing to let it be. Have you found that in
Yeah,
your own life too?
100%. I think I'm insanely confrontational, maybe too confrontational.
I do not see that for you at all. I love that.
Yeah, I'll just share like anything that's on my mind, no matter how ridiculous it is, too.
I love
I
it.
Yeah, I remember one time with the partner that I was seeing, I was saying that, so basically I have this weird thing where I think people tend to date people that look like themselves, right? Like even
So
if it's not the
true.
same ethnicity, like the same eye shape or ear shape. And so my partner went on just like a coffee little meetup with someone that he dated in the past, and they look so alike. So then I started to feel insecure. I'm like, oh no, what if like he likes her more because she looks more like him than we look alike?
Right.
So I flat out told him, I was like, hey, this is the story I'm telling myself. I feel like you might like her because you guys look more alike. And he's like, do you know how ridiculous that sounds? But then he reassured me, and then everything
Right.
was good.
I mean, I don't even think it's that ridiculous. I think people actually do that subconsciously, but that's not the moral of the story. The moral of the story is I love that you like actually went to him and you just said, this is how I'm feeling. Can you either meet me and like love me in this way, or maybe I'll learn the truth about whatever's going on. Either
Yeah.
way, something good will come from it, even if the thing that comes from it isn't the thing that you wanted. It's good in the end.
Yeah. Or oftentimes I'll be like, hey, I am seeking reassurance, right? Like, can you give me a reassurance on this? Or we do this thing where it's like, hey, can you neutralize this for me?
Oh, I
Because
love
maybe
that.
something wasn't like fully healed and we thought it was resolved, but then it actually wasn't. And so I was like, hey, I need this to be neutralized. And like, all
Hmm.
right, let's do it.
Is that how you approach your like hard conversations, whether with a partner, a friend, or business partner, anything like that? Do you just go and say, "Hey, this is what I'm feeling. Can we just talk about it?" Or what do you think is the right approach?
Yeah, I think try to always use like the I statements, like this is how I'm feeling and this is important to me because.
Yeah,
So I think
yeah,
that's
that's
really
good.
good rather than like getting defensive and hearing out their response as well.
And that's half the battle is actually getting out of your own way again, so you can hear them. And sometimes you
Right.
hear things you don't want to hear, but it's necessary.
Yeah.
I mean, this is also good. So you've learned so much about like how to build healthy relationships, healthy connections, how to bring people together. When somebody goes to your event, what can they expect?
They can expect to be surrounded by high quality individuals. And so by that, I try to bring people who are either entrepreneurs or they're pursuing something that they're passionate.
Mm,
Because
totally.
then there's much more, you have exciting conversations with them, they're working towards something, they're goal oriented. And then people who prioritize their health and fitness, because then that like bleeds into your mental
Mhm.
state, right? That, and then also people who are brave enough to come alone. Sometimes if someone's like, hey, I'll only come if my friend can come, I'll tell them no. I'll
You
just,
inspire people to come alone.
yeah.
I love that. Like, absolutely, that's the exact way to get somebody out of their own way. That is so good. So
Right.
scary, but so good.
Yeah. So they can expect that. And then they can expect, yeah, probably a little bit of icebreakers or some type of connection activities. So whether it's like a round circle where everyone shares something, or I've even done it where as soon as you arrive, I'm going to hand you a little slip of paper and then you'll like unroll it and I'll be like, go confess something silly to someone, right? Or go share one of your dreams.
I love that. It's just it gives them the icebreaker. And then
Yes.
eventually they can learn how to come up with those deeper questions on their own.
Yeah.
Incredible. So you have done some like work on, building your self-worth and your confidence, but in your experience, how does somebody's relationship with themselves either enhance or inhibit their ability to build deeper connections?
Ooh, so much. Probably like more than most of us even think about it because when you love yourself so much, then you're able to enter in conversations from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. And you're not constantly seeking external validation. And you're not coming from a place of desperation where it's like, how can this person fill this void that I have? And then instead, right, you're coming in a place of abundance and genuine curiosity and authenticity and not afraid to be vulnerable. And all of those things are kind of like the secret recipe to how to have a great conversation.
What an amazing answer. Coming into it from abundance and not scarcity. That will absolutely shift how you behave, how the person feels, everything you talk about. Completely different approach. How can somebody join one of your events? How do they look you up? Where do they find you? How do you book more, walk and talks with people? Just how can somebody get to know you?
Yeah, so someone could get to know me by following me on Instagram, which is Beyond Light, and yeah, just send me a DM and maybe send me like a hobby of yours or a voice audio, right? Because I love voice audios so much. And once again, that's probably going out of so many people's comfort zone. But then I just feel instantly more connected to you
Mm.
and could get a gauge of like your personality. And then it's like, then I'm like craving, like, ooh, I want to know more about this person.
I love your the fact that you are so interested and curious about people is really beautiful. It's not even about you. It's just about I want to know you. I want to know this person. Like I'm so curious about what actually makes, Sarah Sarah or Bobby Bobby. Like who is that person? The
Yeah.
natural curiosity is so refreshing. It's really cool.
I like to think that every single person is their own book, and you ask the right questions, you could get to any chapter you want.
Wow.
And whoever's the one asking questions is basically like you are in the driver's seat and you can control the conversation anywhere you want.
Right. That's a
Like as
good
long as
analogy.
you're showing up authentically and like being vulnerable and giving them a safe space.
You make people feel so comfortable, so safe, so welcomed. I've met people through you. I feel comfortable bringing you to any event because I know you're going to make other people feel so safe too. So it's just like so great to know you, and I'm so excited to share kind of your perspective and your views on building community and friendships with the rest of my audience because I think it is rare and unique and special and we can all be more like you. So thank you for sharing everything.